Did you know that Malcolm X visited the Gaza Strip just 1 year before his assassination? In September 1964, whilst traveling across Africa and the Middle East, the civil rights leader spent 2 days in Gaza, which was then under Egyptian administration. He visited refugee camps, mosques, hospitals and markets, and met Palestinians who had been displaced by the Nakba in 1948. According to his travel diaries, Malcolm X spent time in the Khan Yunis refugee camp, which was created in 1949. After leaving Gaza, he went back to Cairo and met with members of the newly formed Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO, including Ahmed Ashukari, the group's first chairman. Just days later, Malcolm X would publish his most detailed essay on the Palestinian cause, titled Zionist Logic. He warned that Zionism was a new form of colonialism disguised as benevolence. Today, his historic trip has been reimagined in the form of a coloring book, Malcolm X in Gaza, published by our colleague Azad Essa and illustrated by artist Nati Ngobin, who we spoke to about the book he illustrated.
We did a lot of research to get what Malcolm could have seen when he visited the Middle East and Africa. We wanted to also introduce kids to a Gaza, before the genocide and the destruction. We wanted kids to know that Palestine is a place with its people, its culture, and give kids access to Malcolm's legacy and what he stood for.
My first question essentially is, what personally drew you to write about Malcolm X's journey in Gaza and illustrate for a coloring book?
Well, first of all, let me just mention that I am part of a media collective called Social Bandit Media, and our aim really is to create learning material for kids, just for kids to make sense of the world around them. So what we do is we will tackle an issue that is currently happening with Malcolm X in Gaza. The coloring book really started last year with my first ever coloring book called From the River to the Sea, which was published in February of last year. First of all, I've always wanted to do material on Palestine because I've been following the conflict for many, many years. But I just wanted to do something like, what can I do to teach kids about this moment? Last year, the South African lawyers approached the ICJ with a charge of genocide against the Israeli government. As a South African, I felt quite proud of that moment, that we were the country that took Israel to task. That took Israel on the world stage to be held accountable for the war crimes in Gaza. The coloring book idea with my team, Social Bandit Media, and I came about where we also consulted teachers and parents, journalists on the ground, activists, creatives, about the coloring book. So that coloring book, From the River to the Sea, came about, and it was about really creating a gateway into Palestine, to tell the story of Palestinians and how they lived before the Nakba, before the Israeli occupation, with Malcolm X and in Gaza. We wanted to continue the tradition of the first coloring book, From the River to the Sea. And, this year marks 100 years since the revolutionary thinker and activist Malcolm X was born. And we wanted kids to have access to his legacy. And just as you said earlier as well, that not many know about his trips to the Middle East in the 1960s. And my team and I, I'm very, very fortunate to have them. We did a lot of research to get what Malcolm could have seen when he visited the Middle East and Africa. We also consulted with a Palestinian academic who gave us access to the poet Harun's writing that when he spent time with Malcolm in the 2 days when he visited Gaza. So we had access to those writings, and we wanted to also introduce kids to a Gaza, before the genocide and the destruction. We wanted kids to know that Palestine is a place with its people, its culture, its society, its flora and fauna, and to really give kids access to Malcolm's legacy and what he stood for. Because in a lot of Malcolm's interviews back in the days, he spoke about the hypocrisy of the United States and the double standards of the United States, which we still see today. Just wanted to highlight Malcolm's 100-year anniversary and also his trip to Gaza, and also what it meant to be in solidarity with not just the people that are in your country, but those that are around the world who are going through similar oppressions and genocide.
So kind of when you were doing your research, what stood out for you in Malcolm X's visit to Gaza, and how did you convey that in the book?
So while we were doing our research, first of all, Malcolm, he was a very brilliant man. Like he was very descriptive in his thought and what he could have seen. There was an image where I had to like really recreate, where Malcolm visited Khan Yunis refugee camp. You know, he was surrounded by kids, and obviously these just inhumane camps where there's no running water, no electricity, no proper roads, where it was just not a place where a human being should be living. So this broke Malcolm's heart, really, and I had to really use my artistic ability to try and create what he could have seen at the Khan Yunis refugee camp. Because as many people in South Africa who are unaware that Malcolm was also a bit of a photographer as well, and so I had to reimagine a lot of these sceneries that he could have seen. And in the images, I really tried to convey his emotions. It had me thinking while we were doing this research that would Malcolm, the question that I had for myself, I guess, was, would Malcolm be proud of a coloring book? The whole point of the work that, I do with my team is to keep the conversation going, is to shine light on the fact that the world has forgotten about Palestine. And we cannot wait 10, 20, 40 years for this kind of material to exist. We have to capture it right now during this genocide.
And what has the response been like to the book? And also, I thought, I recall seeing some backlash to the previous book, From the River to the Sea. So was there any backlash to this one, and what kind of backlash was there? But initially, what was the response to this book?
So just to touch on the first one, From the River to the Sea, there's been quite a lot of backlash it all started May of last year with the Jewish Board of Deputies, and they basically put out a statement saying that we've come aware of this coloring book that is floating on the shelves of South African bookstores, and such work shouldn't be allowed to be published in a democratic South Africa, and that we are disgusted by the content of this book. And mind you me, they've only just seen the cover of the book, not even what the book entails. So that backlash happened, which caused Exclusive Books, one of South Africa's biggest book chain store. They removed the book from their shelves, and fortunately for me and my team, we were met with a lot of support from pro-Palestinian groups in South Africa. I think the whole boycott and backlash lasted for about a week until Exclusive Books put out a statement, two statements actually. The first one saying that they did not censor or approve books. The second one saying that after carefully reviewing the content of this coloring book. So for me, it was quite confusing. Like, okay, which one is it? Do you allow all content, or do you have to review first to see if it's not offensive to Zion? So that was the backlash of the first book, which actually, before the backlash, we had sold 3,000 copies. And after the backlash, we sold about 10,000 more copies of the first coloring book. Mm-hmm. And also, for those who never knew that Malcolm visited Gaza, I've had a lot of people saying that I had no idea, and this book is very educational. And I love how it doesn't focus on Malcolm's biography, because there's quite a lot of books on his biography, even a film on his life. So, but something about him specifically visiting Gaza, it's close to being unheard of. So I've had people really connecting positively with the book.
I've seen a few books particularly children's books about Palestine, and about trying to humanize the Palestinian people and what it's like to be a Palestinian at the moment. So what do you see the future of this side of kind of literature and this side of the industry looking like?
Well, unfortunately, we do have Israel and, and I guess the US as well, really suppressing Palestinian literature and Palestinian voices. In the beginning of this year alone, the From the River to the Sea book was confiscated in East Jerusalem by the Israeli police, and they accused it of inciting hate and violence and being Hamas propaganda. You know what that means? Apparently, the truth is Hamas propaganda. So I guess Palestinian literature, even though it's still being suppressed in many parts of the world, but I still think in many other places, South Africa being one of those places, slowly Palestinian literature is starting to make wave, quite prominently so. But, unfortunately, a lot of countries still support apartheid Israel. So those are the places where Palestinian literature is being suppressed.